What's up, everybody? This is Schmitty with another episode of Talkin Schmit. Today on the podcast, I got my old friend from Texas, Mr. Jake Nunn. Haven't talked to Jake in a while, so it'll be great to catch up with him. As you all know, I do have a website and I do have a YouTube page. So if you feel like watching us, you can go over to YouTube and see some visuals. Otherwise, stick with the old radio format. That's always my favorite. Anyhow, we'll be right back after these messages. Blood Wizard. Blood Wizard. Blood Wizard. Blood Wizard! Shop.bloodwizard.com.
Tickety-tack.
Hey, it's Corey at Blue Plate, 3218 Mission Street. Come see us. Meatloaf, fried chicken, deviled eggs, Dollar Olympia beers. We're here every day of the week. We got a garden and we got smiles on our faces. Come let us make you happy.
This is Jake Nunn. I'm here joining Schmitty, doing this Talkin Schmit thing. Hopefully this is going to be fun.
Hey, Talkin Schmit. I'm already not watching.
It's cool, like tonight is the night.
Damn, this is like the coolest thing I'm ever gonna do.
I wouldn't say it was fun.
What do you mean, bro? Christian Fletcher's younger brother.
Fuck the Dodgers.
Big Dog's in. What do you think, Dolan?
John, Schmitty,
Talkin Schmit.
Alpha macaroni.
Most of these guys, their opinion don't matter.
Talkin Schmit, right?
It's skateboarding.
I remember that.
Talkin Schmit. What are yuns doing?
Holy shit.
Skateboarding homies.
No, Schmit, you can't jump in.
What is happening?
Gregory.
Yes, we are. Wi-Fi check 1, Wi-Fi check 2.
Here we go, kids. We got another episode today, and today we're talking to one of my old friends from Texas, but he's actually in California housing. It gets really complicated, so forget all that. This is Jake Nunn. What's up, Jake?
Not much. Just living the California life for a few days.
Yeah, it's a little cooler or about the same weather-wise?
Way cooler. It's been like 108, 110 out in Texas.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Terrible. It's terrible. I've been working down at the beach, though. I'm doing a beach house remodel for my mom. So it's like 89, 90 degrees down there. So it's nice. But yeah, like you just stay inside most of the days. You know, right? I mean, there's a lot of swim spots, but they're crowded, you know, and all the creeks are dry. So it's pretty much Barton Springs or a chlorinated pool. You're still in Austin or outside of the town? Yeah, I'm technically in Austin, but technically not in Austin. I live like right, the lake that runs through there is Town Lake. They now call it Lady Bird Lake, but I live a little upstream, which is actually, what would they call it? I guess it's Lake Austin. And I live, a few blocks from there. And we moved out there because it's kind of you get power from the city, but you pay, you have separate trash services and there's no, everything's on septic systems. So it's kind of crazy.
Wow. Is the septic, yeah. So if something goes out, you're kind of screwed temporarily.
Yeah, usually the first thing you do is you have somebody come pump it. Like if it's overflowing or not working, then yeah, you have somebody come pump it. But yeah, I'm renting a small house that, I've never even seen evidence of any septic field because it's so dry right now. So, and the house is really old. It has window units and shit. It's like, if I'm not there with the window units on, it's like 100 degrees in the house. So,
damn.
So it's kind of gnarly.
That's super gnarly for me, but I'm sure you acclimate, get used to it a little bit, change your hours up. Are you Austin since day one? Were you born and raised out there? Or like,
yeah. Yeah, I was born and raised out there, and the only time I spent away from there was when I moved to Santa Cruz with Rosenberg and Zac Martin. And then, yeah, shortly after that, less than a year, moved to SF with a couple of random people that I knew from Austin. Down on 5th and Harrison.
Yeah, I remember.
Back when it was sketchy.
Dude, back when that donut shop's still open somehow.
Yeah, I drove by like last time I was there in April. I was there for the Silly Pink Bunnies thing. So
okay.
So I'm now an official member.
No way.
Yeah, a friend of mine started a Texas chapter randomly, like through Frankie. This guy Frankie, Freddie was spending a lot of time with Frankie out in Houston, and then at some point he said, "Yeah, you should start a chapter out here." And so once Frankie told me that he was starting a chapter. I was like, I want in.
Sick. Yeah, those annual parties. One year they had one with Cool Keith.
Oh, that was sick. I bet.
Yeah, I was on a boat, I think. Those guys always come back because they're all my friends, but I'm not in there. But I always hear the stories like, dude, this year was out of control. Whatever. So oh, that's sick. Yeah, Jeremy Fish is killing it out here. He's doing so much
seems
stuff.
like he's busy as shit. Like he's always just putting stuff out. It's all cool because he does a lot of local stuff for like North Beach and all those cool restaurants and
trying to keep San Francisco alive.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah.
Well, what was the first memory you have of like having a fucking skateboard, like a four-wooden? Like, were you a little kid and you had like a plastic one, or like what was your introduction to it?
I think it was like a friend of mine, maybe his older brother or his neighbor had one. And I think it was probably an Executioner or something. We all rode BMX bikes. Everybody was into riding, BMX back then.
Yeah.
And I played, like baseball and whatever, but I was kind of interested in it, and then told my parents, hey, I want a skateboard for Christmas or my birthday. It must have been Christmas. But yeah, they got me some, it was called a Skill Offensive. They got it from like Oshman's, this sporting goods store.
Yeah.
It was like camouflage on the bottom, and just saw eyes, and then like a guy like holding a knife, like a hand with a knife, and it said Skill Offensive. It was the cheesiest board ever. And then I rode that thing for a year or so. Finally convinced my parents to like get, they wouldn't buy me a whole new complete, so I got like trucks for one Christmas, and then so I had to figure out a way to mount those trucks onto a board or get an old board from somebody else. So it was like I never got like a complete for my birthday or any Christmas or anything. Yeah, and then once I had one, it was always like, we weren't poor, but they just didn't see buying that, stuff because it was expensive. And it's still the same price. But back then, you think how much that was. It's like $50-$60 for a set of trucks. I feel like when you ordered them, you go to the mall, whatever it was expensive. They're like, we're not paying $150 something for a complete that you're probably going to lose, or who knows.
Right.
But yeah, after years of, sticking with it and growing a bunch of friends, I think that was the main thing. Me and all my friends, it seems like a lot of people were just like latchkey kids. We were just running around. We needed something to do after school. We were all hanging out with each other, and we loved skateboarding. So we just, all kept going that way. It was half of us, like half the people went off and they just became, more jockey or, stayed with baseball and whatever they decided to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a crew of us, 10 or 12 of us that, were just like the North Side guys.
Did you have a local mentor, like somebody that maybe was a little older than you that you guys all looked up to, that helped you kind of learn etiquette and teach you like how to skate?
Not at first. We were kind of lost. We just, would look at magazines. It was hard for us to learn how to do tricks because we didn't have somebody in front of us, doing them. And then at some point before we started going downtown and meeting up with the other crews, I feel like my friend Zach Raven, his sister dated this guy, David Kane, who was an amazing ripper back in the day. He died real young. I think it was a car wreck or something. He died, it was like 15, 16, maybe 17. But like he had stories about him. He could ollie in 180 trash cans on flat, like back in the day when nobody ollied shit. I mean, people were ollieing like 2 boards maybe. So we saw him one day, like skating our ramp, and we're like, whoa, dude, people can skate like that. That's fucking crazy. And so we were all impressed. We had heard stories about him too. And then there was a couple, local pros at the, that were through Lone Star, the skate park. And we'd see them sometimes at this place called Fungus Ditch. And, and those guys were ripping, but they were way older than us. And so we didn't hang out with them. It wasn't really till we started going to this shop, Let's Go, which was downtown. And, we'd ride the bus. It was awesome. So that'd be like middle school. We'd ride the bus downtown, and not all the way downtown, but to the drag pretty much.
Was it like, by 6?
No, it's further up. It was more like 20. It was off 26th and Ruth or something. So it was further up. It was basically where the college was. The drag, drag was Guadalupe, and it ran in front of the college and everything. So you could skate up and down the drag. But the main thing was you could meet up at the shop, and just like once 20, 30 people, gathered, they would just take off, and somebody would just lead the way, and we would go through parking garages, different stuff. We'd go on to UT property and get kind of run off, and there's still people skating the same spots that we were skating, back then. It's crazy. I'll see footage. I'll be like, oh, that's the library. They're skating it because there was these sets of rails. It looked like a Frankie Hill rail or something, and people would try them. It was a down, flat down. I remember people trying. I'm like, dude, that's so sketchy. Like, how do you get up on that rail?
Yeah.
And it was low, but it was perfect, like marble ground. And so it was maybe granite. I don't know. It was super smooth. And people still skate that spot. The rails are gone, but they still skate that spot.
No way.
The kid Ryan Thompson I saw, he does this like long front board slide on one. But I think it's like a newer rail that they put there. So I was stoked to see that dude hitting up UT.
Yeah.
A lot of people now hit up UT because they don't fuck with you as much. They used to put you in jail. There was a while, like if they caught you a few times, they would put you, they have their own jail. I'd heard stories, people like, yeah, I spent a night in jail over there. I was like, fuck that.
That's crazy. Like in Texas, you can drive around with an open container, but you can't skate.
No more open containers.
I know, but at that time,
you can have your guns everywhere.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah, I remember also too, like during the winters, like I think it was Teddy found this spot, Ted Barrow, the guy doing all the ledge stuff. Pretty sure it was him. Maybe one of the Let's Go guys showed it to him, but like 4 levels down, they have all these classrooms. And so in the winter, when it was rainy, you could just go in this one building, you take the escalator down and you get to where you're on the 4th floor below, the street. And there's nobody there, and it's empty. You turn on all the lights, and it was like these circular 8 hallways. And so we would just we would play tag and just skate through there and pull out furniture and turn the lights on and off. And I don't know, we never got kicked out of there. I was like, how do they not hear us down here? But we'd spend hours down there.
Damn. Were you guys, you guys have a lot of fucking epic ditches out there. Were you aware of that instantly, or did that take longer to be aware that like there's some drainage areas to roll in?
No, the first thing I ever dropped in on was this place, Fungus Ditch. Like I said, where we saw the pros at Lone Star. It's, it's sick. It's like, it's banks like this, bank like that, but there's a lip at the bottom. And so somebody at some time put concrete on that lip, and it goes for a while. Like you can carve it back and forth like a half pipe. And yeah, it was like set up like a half pipe. So that was the first thing I dropped in on because we didn't have a ramp. And that thing was, I think it's like 6 feet tall, and it's concrete. We skated there a lot when it wasn't wet, but after a while, it just seemed like the bottom of it was wet because that's why they called it Fungus Ditch. Just the whole bottom would have fucking solid moss across it.
Oh, damn.
And so it'd be like that all winter. And then summer would come around and it usually dried up. But then, yeah, there was, you would just cruise around and be like, oh, there's a ditch, there's a ditch, there's a ditch. And especially once we had cars and stuff and, started meeting up with Southsiders and, people who lived in different parts of town. Same thing, like up north, there's a lot of ditches where all the, new suburban sprawl was, that's what they built it for. It's overflow. It's drainage for these suburban, homes.
And they kind of, do they occasionally have like flash floods where it just rains super hard too, like Arizona and
we get them,
and New Mexico.
Yeah, and we get them. We'll get a lot sometimes. I remember one year, what was it? We got 4 feet of rain in like less than a week, like just a few days. And yeah, sometimes there'll be nights where like thunderstorms really hard, and you get 8-12 inches. And so yeah, if you're anywhere near a creek or any of that shit, it's it just it just slowly fills up. And so yeah, they have to have all these, they got to have somewhere for the water to go. So
right,
it's all got to go to the river.
What was like one of your earliest skate videos that you watched?
What was before public domain?
Was it Animal Chin?
See, I can't remember because we couldn't find that, but I know we had public domain and we watched that a lot. And then they had Sick Boys, I think, at the rental store, because there was a VHS store.
Wow.
They only had a couple videos. It was like Sick Boys.
That's rad that they had Sick Boys.
But yeah, public domain we were definitely into because it was like, this is what we do. We skate in the streets all around. This is like, we just mimic that video.
Okay.
Like from day one, we would watch it over and over and watch, it was like Barbie and all those guys going out in the street and be like, we're going to go out and mimic that same thing.
Yeah. Who were your guys? Was there anybody that, like, when you saw them in the mag or that you watched their video part over and over that you were hyped on?
At that time, everybody was loving Ray Barbie just because his style and, how they edited the video really well to make it look like he was just constantly cruising down, endless street. And, it was done really well. And then, yeah, the kids, it was like, Gabriel and, guy, and who else was on there? There was a couple other, right? I feel like there was like 3 or 4 of those those Powell guys.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Maybe Steve Saez or Saez.
Yeah,
brothers.
he was in there. And then there was some other guy who was older that I think he was only in that video, and I never saw him again. But he like was rail sliding rails and stuff, and it's like, whoa,
Sanderson, maybe.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
and I was like, whoa, that guy's rail sliding rails like we have around here, like long, mellow ones.
Right. Huh. So what was like, I mean, you were known kind of for big pop and stuff. Were you always a jumper and stuff, or did you just like, how'd that evolve for you?
It just kind of happened. Like we started skating stairs and stuff. And really, I think the pop came from, I had curb cuts at my dad's house. He had a sidewalk, and just the whole street had curb cuts. And they were only like, that tall, but they were well designed. And so I also had a launch ramp, but I like skating the curb cuts. So it taught me how to, ollie off those. And so most people, would launch off launch ramps, and I always would ollie off of them because I learned out of the curb cut.
Okay.
In the videos, we didn't have a lot of videos. So mainly started turning into people, like if we went down to Let's Go, or, like one of the parks that they opened eventually, like a power plant, we would see these older guys who were rippers, and they were sponsored, like this guy, Kurt Anderson. He was a badass. I mean, he just killed every street, launch ramps, vert, he could just do it all. He was the first one ever to do the ski jump, like the ski jump at Target. There's this Target ski jump. It's this thing that goes down and shoots you out over the sidewalk.
Oh yeah.
Like Jerhobel wanted to go there, and I took him there. He was like, this thing sucks. I was like, I know, I told you. It's like it's a crazy steep launch ramp with a crazy roll in, and it pitches you where you don't want to go.
It looks better in video.
Oh yeah, it looks way better in video.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guy Kurt Anderson, like probably 89, 90, he was doing Japan airs like to the street. And it was years before anybody did anything else on it. Like I would try to do 360s onto the sidewalk, but I could never roll away good. I could do ollies and stuff like that. But I feel like it wasn't until we went there with their Hobel that people started skating it again. And I think he 180'd all the way into the street, which is super hard.
Okay. When did you meet Zac Martin?
Probably at Power Plant, one of the iterations of Power Plant. They had a few different ones. They had a small one up north, and then they moved again. Oh, there was also Dillo, but that was right before Power Plant, right? So I guess Dillo was first. There's Lone Star Skate Park was first, and that was Lori and her husband Bill, and that's like they had a huge, maybe 10 or 12 foot vert ramp. And I remember had Vision Streetwear painted on it, and they had like an 8 foot and a 5 foot. But that went away because they were putting a huge highway through there in North Austin. So they lost their spot. She turned into Lone Star Skateboards in the mall. So that was our skate shop up at North Cross Mall.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dillo was the spot. Like you would go there, and I guess, was it Corey Thornhill's dad opened Dillo? Or was it Power Plant? I think it was Dillo. I feel like Tom Thornhill opened Dillo. I'm pretty sure. And then maybe that went away, and he opened a Power Plant one. And that one was pretty small, but it was cool. It had this upstairs mini ramp. Like you went upstairs, and everything was real low. Like you could hit your head, and had a spine ramp with a weird little vert wall over here and a hump. And just watching Zac in there was insane. Like it was a snake, it was a snake session. Like you try to drop in, and people just dropping in, grinding around you.
Yeah.
But he was just killing that thing, doing all kinds of tricks and everything. And we had known about him because he was like 10 or 12. He was a couple of years younger than us, and everybody talked about him. There was a couple young kids that ripped like this. This other guy, Toby, I think. And then what was that one kid's name? Steve Chambers. Yeah. So there were some younger sponsored rippers at that time that weren't in our crew or anything. They were just with the older guys. They were cool enough to be with the older guys. We were kind of, not nerdy, but we just weren't into the game as much as these guys were. So
right. Did you guys have somebody in the crew that had a camera or a video camera or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, our friend Dylan at some point had an old funky like VHS-C, or I don't even know what it was, but it was big. It was huge. It was like a big, big box. And I think, that's one of the first times I ever like jumped down something. I kick flipped down these stairs. Like we were trying to ollie them. I ended up kick flipping down it. And like we watched the footage later, and I was like, wow, that was crazy. I caught it like Jed caught that fucking kick flip over the bump. Like I just thought I kick flipped it and I rolled away. but I was like, watched the footage and the kickflip, and it went to my foot, and then I landed. I was like, dude, that's so hard. How did I do that? I don't even remember really doing that. And so at that point, I started realizing I could jump down stuff more. And then they'd be like, hey, Jake, try to jump down that. Try to jump down that. And then, so yeah, there was these sets of cobblestone stairs on Far West. I remember just doing, a bunch of tricks down them, 180s, switch 180s, stuff like that. And nobody else would skate the stairs. Oh. Because they were just pretty rough. And
so is that around the time where like maybe you get your first sponsor or somebody starts flowing you local shop, or no? Later?
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. I feel like I wasn't that good.
Oh.
Like I was okay, but like my friend Dylan, who's the filmer guy, he was better than any of us. Like any trick that came out, he could learn it like within a couple days. Oh. He also had a trampoline, so he's really good at trampoline boarding. Dude. Yeah, everything he did, he was good at. So he's a pilot now, so it makes sense.
Do kids nowadays do trampoline boarding? It seemed like kind of a thing back then.
It was back then, because I think it helped us like with all those crazy flip tricks.
Flip tricks, yeah. Like Jake Rosenberg was super good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, like impossibles and weird like late foot flips, all that shit helped a lot. Yeah. You could try it off the curb, but you could also just try it bouncing.
Right.
And I was never good at the trampoline board. I could do a few tricks, but not the way
I could never get it either. It was like hard on my body to figure out.
And then it would hit your shin or come up and hit you up here, and you're like, fuck this.
Yeah.
But he was really good. I think he was the best in our little crew. Excuse me. And then we had some other Northside guys. This guy Aaron went, and he's still skating now. He's killing it now. Like was always a good skater, but now he's just skating all the time now. And I think he's sponsored like for the first time in his life.
Yeah.
And he's my age. He's 46. So he's like skating every day in the heat. I'm like, how do you do that? But yeah, he's learning all kinds of tricks. It's like the other day, he's like learning switchback tails. I'm like, dude, you never did that trick. Damn. He was always really good at manuals, like any manual trick, like, 180, fakie manual, flip out, all that shit. He would learn them first. And then, Ted was around. Like, that's when our crew started becoming more. Ted was in, I want to say.
Zach Hudson came there for a minute, right?
Yeah. And we, over time, we'd always go down to the drag, and there was that crew, but we had a kind of a north side crew that was just me and my friends growing up that went to the same schools. And then Aaron went, and this other guy, Chris, they were at St. Louis, which is like a private school. And then Ted was at a private school too, or something. But we all lived near each other. So at some point we just and Ted had a car first. So, that was a different, that changed everything. We started, instead of skating just around the neighborhoods and stuff, we started going down to Lamar Curb and downtown. Because by that time, Let's Go had closed. So the drag, if you just went down there, you just hung out there. And there was a while, there was this abandoned, like Mexican place, had a big sombrero hat that you could go up and skate it, kind of like that one.
Up in Washington?
Yeah, Washington or somewhere. But yeah, it was really hard to get up there. And usually if you went up there, like the cops would come by or something. But no, this place we called it Sombrero Rosa. And I guess that was the name of the place. I don't know why. But it had really smooth tiles. And then there was tile curbs. And so these tile curbs grind real well and slide real well, but they would chip. So we skated there for a couple of years. And eventually that just kind of, I don't know if they started working on it again, but we kind of moved up the street to some other spot on the drag. And the subway curbs, and it's like in front of Subway and a Double Dave's Pizza. They they never really kicked us out. They were fine with it as long as we didn't harass the customers. They were cool with it.
Did you skate in any contests early on?
No, I want to say, what was my first contest?
Was it before you were sponsored?
Oh, actually, the first contest I skated in was Shut Up and Skate, the last one they had.
No way.
My dad drove me up there. I think my friend Aaron entered. I don't think Ted entered. He might have entered. But at that point, when we were, like 16-ish, we started, they would go to Houston a lot and hang out with the Houston dudes. Sometimes the Houston dudes would come to town, and Houston dudes had a huge crew of folks. Yeah. All the heads. And so they were way better than all of us. So we'd learn all these, learn how to skate ramp and learn all these tricks from those guys. But yeah, that was the first contest I went to, I believe, because I don't remember.
Who are the Houston dudes? Like Mike Crum?
No, he was in Dallas.
He's Dallas.
Yeah, and he was vert, and he was close to our age. I remember going up to Dallas. You go to Jeff Phillips, and he'd be skating there, doing huge fucking frontside ollies on the ramp. I'm like, how do you do that without grabbing?
Yeah,
and he was always nice. He was cool.
He's a good
Jeff,
dude.
Yeah. So I don't remember entering a contest at Jeff Phillips because it was right around the time it was was about to close.
Did you ever see Jeff Phillips skate?
Yeah, at the park a couple of times. And he would get there and he'd just do a line around the whole park. He would start in one spot and go in this bowl, air out of that thing, air over here, air to here, air to here, and he would hit every spot, like every little ramp. And it was condensed. There was like I feel like there was a bowl thing. There's a mini ramp, another mini ramp. And then
there was like a doorway, right?
Yeah, there's a little doorway.
Me and Phil went there on our way back from Atlanta. Yeah, fuck. That's sick seeing. I mean, Jake Phillips used to always tell me the story that he's like, Jeff Phillips is the only person that could do a 540 out of a hand plan on one wall, next wall 540.
Probably.
He was like he could just pump the train. He was like, fuck.
Yeah, he could. Like I said, he would just he would be in a bowl and he would just transfer out of it. It wasn't like he went and picked up speed. You'll see people like hit a pocket grind or just pump it really hard. He would just, transfer to tail and go over here and go over there. Yeah. Yeah, he was amazing.
Who was the first guy that you kind of were friends with that ended up getting sponsored?
I guess Zac. I didn't skate a lot with him. He skated a lot with all my old, like a lot of my younger friends or different friends. My friend Pat, he skated a lot with him. And then him and like Telch, Jamie Telch were always hanging out because he'd be in town for, the summers. And at that point, I feel like Jamie actually started going to school in Austin. And so there was a kind of crew of those guys. And then at some point, Zac wanted to go to the school I wanted to go to. His grandmother was a counselor there. So he was going to go there. Oh. And since he didn't really know anybody, he was like, hey, can I do the tag along thing with you? I was like, you don't even know me or like me. You want to come tag along and see all the classes and stuff? And I think, he came, and because it was one of the last days of school. And I want to say maybe I had a final in one of them. But I remember I took acid for one final. I think it was a Spanish final or something. And I believe he was there. He was like, you're crazy. You took acid and took a Spanish final? I was like, yeah, I got this. No big deal.
I'd trip on that. People that took acid at school, like that would be my worst nightmare. I'd be like,
well, I always would try to do it after, or I was like, well, this is the end of school. Fuck it, I'll do it because everybody else was doing it, and I think at that time we'd kind of built up a tolerance. But yeah, definitely, that school was fun. McCallum, we used to skate in front of the school, and that's also helped me get good. Like before school started, I'd be there like 7:15, 7:30. And when we first went there was this older guy, Ricky, and this older guy, I can't remember his name, but they were skating the bump. They had a really good bump that went into the parking lot. I mean, it was like this tall, and it was good. Like eventually I ollied like the front hood of a car off of it, and backside 180'd over it because it was such a good bump. So yeah, we'd skate there every morning. I feel like all freshman year. And then we'd have our boards, and then we could, do whatever we want after school.
Work up a nice sweat before class.
Yeah.
What was Zac's? Did he wasn't think right out of the gates, right?
I want to say he was Vision or something.
Vision.
I think he was on Vision, maybe some other stuff. I don't think he was ever BBC. I want to say he was on Vision. And then he went to, I want to say some of the Shut Up and Skate contests, and that's where Greg saw him and put him on Think. Kind of like a flow thing. And then I'm trying to think, sometime after that, Phil and Paul came out maybe with Jamie. They did like a cross country trip and stayed with Jamie. So I hung out with those dudes for like a day or two, but I didn't really know them. I just knew of them. I didn't see him again until years when we moved out there and would stay at Paul's house.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What like triggered you guys moving out there? You and Zac got a U-Haul and drove out together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't planning on being a skateboarder. I was in school. I was like, I'm going to be an architect or a lawyer or something. And I was just at community college, just working my way up to something, probably transfer to UT and then figure out whatever it is I wanted to do. But then I'd had a couple photos in magazines when they would come through. Like Jeff Kula shot a couple photos of me through the years when he would just drive through and have photos. But
You
then,
remember your first photo in the mag?
Yeah, it was Kula shot a photo of me doing like a kickflip grab at this old ditch. We called it corridor ditch, and it's really close to where the Pflugerville ditch, which is an old famous 80s ditch, was.
Yeah.
It was kind of, this one's right off 35 and the Pflugerville ditch was a little further away, but it was kind of set up, I guess the same guys who had done Pflugerville ditch kind of set up this corridor ditch and people just left it there. But yeah, I did a kickflip indie to fakie, but I think they called it a keep on trucking because my feet were like this. They were just kind of weird on the board. But yeah, that was the first
Was
photo.
that in Thrasher or Transworld or?
I guess it's Transworld. They would do these, articles about a state. And so they would do Dallas, Austin, Houston, he would just drive through. And then he drove through like a year later and shot one of my friend PJ doing like a heel flip. And then me just doing a backside flip over like some sawhorses we had at our, this little slab spot we had that we skated through the years.
Right.
It was a really, really good slab spot. It's like, spent so much time there because it was in the neighborhood. I even took driving classes there. So as soon as I was before and after my driving school classes, I would go skate. And that was our spot. We just moved parking blocks around and stuff. And then years later, we actually built ledges and stuff there. And it was sick.
Right.
That was in like the early 2000s.
So you were taking a random photos and getting in the mags a little bit, and it kind of got your feet wet and you're not really thinking that's your direction. And then you get, did you apply to college in Santa Cruz? Is that what drew you out there, or was Zach let's go out there, or what?
Zach always was kind of talking about it, but I think he was a little not intimidated. He just wasn't going to do it by himself. And then, so maybe like a year before we moved out, Jeff Taylor came to town. So Jamie and Zach called me. They're like, "Hey, Jeff Taylor's in town. He's doing an Austin article, just like they usually do, where they do Dallas, Austin." And it was sick. Like everybody got tricks. Like Schmally went and like dropped in on this crazy thing he had been wanting to do. This guy, Jason Schmally. He's funny. He's kind of from lower Texas, down South Texas, but he had lived in Austin since, mid 90s.
Okay.
So he was always kind of part of the crews that ran around. And then, Jamie got a crazy wall ride photo. Zach got a right down the street, dropping in on a bus bench and a bank.
Sick.
And then when Kula came to town one time, there's this gap right on First Street. And I think I ollied it, 180'd it. And he was shooting like black and white rolls, sequences. I was like, I think I can kickflip this thing. And so I kickflipped it, but immediately broke my board, landed, the board just fucking broke.
Uh-huh.
So he told me later, he's like, I got that sequence. It looked fucking amazing. He's like, you got to go back and do that. So anyway, Jeff Taylor was in town. And he had this fucking sick ass lens on his camera. I was like, I've never seen a lens like that. Like you'd see it at, tennis courts or sports, famous, like sports athlete.
Yep.
You're like, where'd you get that lens? I've never seen a skateboarder shoot with that lens. And so, I kickflip this. I don't know, the double set going this way. There's a rail, the weird fucked up rail that's not supposed to be there. So I went off the double set, which isn't really a double set. It's more of a double set than a wall. I went over the rail into the street. And then, that got me a bunch of offers from stuff. Like, I don't know, I guess Rune wanted me to ride for Flip. They'd come through for the Sports and Music Festival.
Uh-huh.
And that was just something they did before they had the X Games. And they did it in Austin for some reason. And I was like, I don't know if I fit on Flip and that you guys are too gnarly. And and then Jeff was just, after that, he was like, I'll flow you rhythm boards and stuff or whatever you want to do. And I got a box and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. But then Zach was like, Greg wants to give you boards. He wants to put you on the team, whatever. He's really down for you. I was like, okay. And so I started getting Think stuff.
What year was that around? Do you remember?
97, 98.
So it was before Phil died.
Yeah. Yeah. We moved out in 98.
Yeah. You guys moved out like right when
we were moving out. Yeah. Like I didn't find out. Zach told me like a couple weeks, maybe a month before we were about to leave. And I hadn't heard. He's like, dude, I got to tell you something. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, Phil died. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, we're going out there to go live with those guys. What do you mean? And yeah, so it was weird. Like, it just didn't make any sense. Like, we made these plans and then they just completely changed and shifted. So then it's like, well, we still got to go out there. I was like, yeah, we got to go, I'm moving out of my house. I don't, if we're going to do this, let's do it. So yeah, I found a deal on a budget rent a truck or whatever, and packed up all this shit and moved to Santa Cruz. He knew Dave Rosenberg through, Paul and Jamie and those guys. And so he was going to school up at UC Santa Cruz. And so he's like, I got to find a place to live. He's like, you guys are welcome to live with me and we'll figure it out. So yeah, we just went out and stayed at Dave's house with his parents until we found a place. We found a little shithole on the beach. I mean, it was tiny. I think it was like 600 square feet, maybe less. 3 of us in there.
And you didn't go to school, or you did?
No, I didn't after that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just quit school. I was like, I'm going to go do this. I'm not going to worry about school.
Right.
I did take some classes at Foothill, like some online classes when they first started offering them. But then I was in Vancouver doing a contest and I wasn't able to take finals. So I just had to lose the money on it because I was like, I couldn't get the computer to work, to connect to do the finals. So I was like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore. If I want to go to school, I'll do it, later down the line.
True or false, you saved a bunch of money and hit Vegas on the way out?
Sort of. I wouldn't say I saved a lot of money. I think I went out with like $700 or $800. Maybe not even that much. But we were just going on a trip. I don't even know why we were going. It was weird. It was like this guy, Eric McKay, David Mills, who was an old kind of famous Texas skater. I think he had some tricks in Now and Later. He was sponsored by Planet Earth. And Little Dave and me and Zach. And we all piled into this Honda Prelude or something. I mean, it was somewhat big, but it was tiny. It was so miserable driving across there. And I don't know why they wanted to stop in Vegas. They just did because Eric liked gambling. So yeah, I lost, I don't know, maybe like $400 or $500 one night. Maybe not that much. But yeah, I lost quite a bit of money one night.
What were you playing?
Blackjack and roulette. And then we went to craps. We were up late one night and met this guy.
I love craps.
Yeah, this guy showed us how to play craps. He was a math teacher who would go out there every year, and he had done a probability test with his students. Yeah. And so he said, hey, he figured out this way to hold the dice because you can decide how you hold them. He would turn it this way and that way, and he'd hold them, and then he would throw them like that. And they didn't care as long as you didn't do anything weird, and they rolled. And so he had a way that the probability would come up where he would know what the roll would be. And he said, they'll watch me sometimes and they'll get on me, and sometimes, and I'll just leave the table. I'll go somewhere else. But he showed us how he'd make all the money betting on other people. Right. He's like, watch me. You'll know when I'm starting to do good, and bet on me because I'm going to get this, this, and this. And, on the different lines, because there's so many different ways to bet on the crap table. Yeah. For me, it's the best odds in the house, and it also can last the longest. And you can go with like 8 people, so it's like a party, and like you're winning off them, they're winning off you. Yeah. So you're all hyped on each other. Yeah. It's pretty sick. That's what he showed us. Like on one table, there wasn't hardly anybody on it. And they're like, hey, let's go to that one. They're making noise. And so we went over to that one, and we stayed there for over an hour, just doing little side bets on the side, making little, 100, 200 there, 300, on the different, all these little, can't remember what they're called on the sides, but it was awesome just watching this dude, because he'd be like, bam, 5, 10, 15. All right, that's enough. And then he'd walk away. And he was a math teacher at a, public school. And you can see how it can become addicting. Like when you start winning, you just think like nothing can stop you. And when you lose, you think, oh, that's temporary. You'll get back on the win, Yeah. Me and my wife took the train up to Reno in the winter and went through the snow, and it's so sick. It's a rad train ride. And we get up to Reno, shout out Classic Skate Shop. And me and my wife are staying at the hotel because we're going to go see a comedy show. And at night, we're just playing craps all night, and I'm teaching her how to play. Second night, she's winning so much. The whole table's calling her the hot shooter. So she has a new nickname, the hot shooter. It was so rad. That was fun. Real fun. Yeah. Let's talk about, you got a pretty good list of nicknames. Yeah, I guess. Originally growing up, there was just always, Snake or whatever, but that's just because of the wrestler.
Jake the Snake. Oh yeah, rhymes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you got Frog Legs.
Yeah. Frog Legs, Froggy. At some point it was somebody gave me, I don't know if it was Ears or somebody gave me Nuska. I don't think it was Rosenberg.
Oh, Nunska, like the Muska.
Nunska. Yeah, like Muska. It's like maybe because I was growing my hair out or something.
Jake or Dave Rosenberg said, was it Barney Fart Snake?
Yeah.
What's
and
that?
it was actually a couple things. I think originally he was like, we were driving across country. They picked me up in Austin. They were driving. We went all the way to the East Coast, like hung out with Patrick O'Dell, some other people that Mark Whiteley hooked us up with. And yeah, I just had terrible gas in the car. And he was like, man, farty. He's like, farty. It's like, started calling me like, weird whitey names. And he's like, farty barn snake. And then he said, I don't know what the other one was. Barney Fart. I think it was Barney Fart Snake was the first one. And then Mike was like, hey, what about Whitey Barn Snake?
I love nicknames, dude. Yeah. Like, and the evolution of them, like it starts this and it becomes something else. And you're like, how the fuck did it become this? It's so random.
Yeah.
Talk about Dave though. Like, what was your first impression? When did you meet him? Do you remember like seeing him and going, oh, this guy's pure entertainment or something? Like what were you?
I mean, I spent a little time when they came through and it was him and Phil and Paul, but I don't know if he was hurt maybe at that point or.
Oh, he came out there with Phil and Paul?
Yeah, he came out there once, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he came out there once. So I didn't spend that much time with him. The first time I really hung out with him was when we went to live in Santa Cruz.
Right.
And I was just like, yeah, this guy's got a shit ton of energy. And he's always on. Like, if you're a comedian, he's like always on.
Yeah.
Wake up, gets his coffee, and he's ready to go.
Right. What was like the highlights of that era, living out in Santa Cruz? And then what was like one of like the things you don't miss at all about it?
The highlights was hanging out with Dave because Zac pretty much left after a month or so. He had to take care of his family and stuff. So he was in Texas most of the time. Most of the time he was in Texas. So me and him had brought out all our vinyl. So that was cool. Dave had a turntable and I had a turntable. And so we were able to like mix records and DJ and stuff just in this room. So that was cool. It was like just coming up with DJ mix sets of my favorite hip hop shit, all that good 90s hip hop, especially out there. You could go to all the shops, San Jose and Amoeba and all those places and find all the records that me and my friends in Austin had been looking for. And they would be cheap because all these other DJs are selling them. So I just would get more and more vinyl. And me and him kind of did the same thing. He was like, oh, we're going record shopping and we're going to stack up. And then, hanging out with him and his family. Like he would go see his family all the time up in the hills. So he would drive up there and maybe after that, we'd hang out there for a day or two. Maybe after that, go hook up with, San Jose guys or like Palo Alto, Mountain View guys and just skate all around there. So that was really fun because it got me out of the house because there wasn't shit to do in Santa Cruz. There wasn't shit to skate. I mean, there was derby and the school sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a few little things to hit, but not much.
Yeah, it's a real small community too. Like, it's an interesting place. Speak about how the hell did you? Because you turned me on to a bunch of hip hop. Like, how did you know about all those underground? Like, it seemed underground to me at least. Like, there was a bunch of stuff. I forget exactly. Maybe AC Alone or something like.
Yeah, all that stuff.
You had a really big variety of knowledge on this stuff. How did was there a local college radio or something, or like how'd
college
you know
radio that? Yeah, they did have some stuff, but we just had a like group of friends. It was me and this guy Will and Keenan and who else was in it. But I mean, for a while we called ourselves the Asguardians. We were like a hip-hop crew. And this guy Brian Claybrook, really smart guy, and he collected a lot of records. I mean, I think it originally started, we were always into Ice-T, NWA, like anything we could find at the record, at the tape, not record stores, tape stores. We buy tapes and then CDs came out. Yeah, my friend Dylan, who, was the filmer when we were really, really young, he had every fucking rap tape. His parents would go buy it for him or let him have it. So we would always be copying off him. But then at some point, I guess Jamie came out, Telch came out with a, or maybe it was Arby. That's what it was. We went to Houston. Jamie gave Arby, I remember he was duping a tape like James Arby's like, I gotta have that. Like, and he had the Hyro. It was all the Hyro unreleased stuff. And I guess he somehow got it through Rosenberg.
Oh,
even
yeah.
though they didn't know each other. It's like somehow a tape got passed around. Jamie got a hold of it.
Right.
By the time we got it, it's all weird and kind of sped up because it's been duped so many times. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. If you dupe a tape and pass it on, it speeds up, especially if you do high speed. And I was always into like, you know, stereophonic equipment shit. And so, yeah, we got that tape. Arby had it. And then we kind of like put mixtapes together of that stuff. And once we found out about that, somebody knew about Freestyle Fellowship. I don't know who it was. And they're like, yeah, you got to listen to this shit. This was off the chain. And then this record came out, Project Blowed. Shout out to those guys because they just did a record of their whole Lamert Park crew. It was like, that was their area, Lamert Park. And they went there and they had freestyle sessions every Thursdays. And everybody would come and just kill the mic. And eventually they just put a record together of all those guys. And it was amazing. It's still amazing when you listen to it. So that's how we got turned on to that. And then randomly in like 95, the guy who was in the records, Brian Claybrook, he was living on Hyde Street. And one of the first people he met was Carlos Young, right? Young is his last name. And he had all this LA hip hop stuff. And so we were trading tapes back and forth, like all this stuff we had never heard. So it was like, you know, there's abstract tribe unique stuff and then some other weird stuff I had never heard of.
Yeah. And, no, because back then it was before the internet. So it was just like your network of friends.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you said college radio. We did have a decent college radio, but they were into like East Coast stuff. And, you know, it was, you know, I don't know, it was like 93 to 95. It was mostly East Coast stuff they were into.
Yeah.
And then we got some shows, like all those, like Hyro came out. There was Black Moon. Like it was crazy. Like the skate shop Blondies, they had like Black Moon do a in-store, and then they had somebody else, Smith and Wesson, and like somebody else came out, and it was like, how are you guys getting these fucking rap crews to come and do this? And then shortly after, like Hyro came out, Project Blowed came out as a whole tour, and it was awesome. Like Project Blowed was on the radio. They went and just took over the radio station. Like they had 2 mics in separate rooms, and they just for an hour just freestyled back and forth, and we just sat there at home and recorded it and listened to it later, and it was like, dude, this shit was amazing.
Do you watch those YouTube rap battles ever? Like so-and-so versus so-and-so is kind of like that. Like they do. I've
seen a couple of them or whatever, but yeah, now I've only watched like some of the stuff. Like, and there's a documentary about it, about the good life and stuff like that.
Oh.
But that's like in the 90s and they're showing it. It's actually the woman, it's Ava Devane, whatever. The woman that did, she's a famous writer, director, producer. She did like 13, right? And some other weird stuff. But she was part of the Project Blowed crew or the Good Life crew. She was a girl rapper. What were they called? They were called, God damn it, I can't remember. It'll come to me. But she actually rapped with those guys and then did a documentary years later, and it's on Netflix somewhere. It's a really good documentary. It's like just footage of her filming for a few years of those guys. And they would battle out in the, just out in the street in front of the place, like talking shit back and forth. And then it was always cool because it was like, when they're done battling, they just pound, shake each other's hands, and then move on.
Yeah. I'm down for a good documentary. We watched a lot during lockdown, like COVID and shit. Whew, that was our jam. Like we had a whole schedule.
Schedule.
Yeah. Seriously, like Monday night was sports. Tuesday night was like true crime. Wednesday night was like, we had a categories but they were always documentaries. We watched like 99 in 1 year.
Jesus. That's crazy.
It was rad though. So, cause you get into them and you're like, who do I like? Like, let's just say, I like Prince. There's probably a documentary on him, like whatever. Yeah. And then the true crime ones, I was like addicted to those. I was like,
I watched a lot.
Shit. The stories are beyond insane.
Yeah. There were some recently that I was disappointed in because at the end, there's not really any resolution. And you're like, that's fucked up. I watched all this and it's more fucked up than it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I'm disappointed. Somebody would ask me, he's like, I was going to watch that. And I was like, don't do it. You'll be disappointed.
Yeah. The Golden State Killer is insane how like they didn't catch him until he was on his deathbed, kind of like he was super old and somehow his prints came up to a family member, something way later in life, and they caught him.
Oh, damn.
As bananas. That was like a few years ago, and he did all of it like a long time ago. But Dave asked me to ask you about the mandatory 4 front sides for dysentery warm-up and the origin of the crew.
It was the same thing as when my nickname came out. It was like me, him, and Mike, and they were driving out to the East Coast. But on this one, we left, or maybe they met me in, I think that one they met me in Portland. I think I did a do tour in Portland or something. Like I was living in Texas, so I was out there, and they're like, "Hey, we'll drive up and we'll go up and down the Oregon coast and hit some shit." And I don't know how it started. One morning, Dave was like not wanting to skate, or I don't know, something was going on. Maybe he was hungover, who knows? But it started, and it was like, I don't know if he said it or if I said it. Somehow we started it. That like, yeah, the best way to warm up is do, as many front side grinds as you can in a row. Like, step by. I was like, don't start with the backside, because me and him were always like backside dudes. So it's like, if you start with front side, then you're going to be ready to go the rest of the day. It's like, just got to do 4 front side grinds. Then you're part of the crew. So it started as a warm up initiation, and then it became an initiation into the crew. Like, drop in, do 4 front sides.
I remember one day we went and skated like 8 skate parks in one day. Like it was our mission to skate as many skate parks. It was like Tracy, Dublin, Livermore, all these ones. And it was like, I think we ended up with 8 or something. It was like dysentery. I remember it was just like so insane. It was super fun times. Yeah. What was it like getting on Think and like meeting these dudes? Like, were you pretty much aware of all their riders? And
yeah, I knew them all. I knew of them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
but I didn't know how fucking gnarly and good they were. I mean, I knew, I would see pictures in magazines, but then, yeah, the first time I skated with them, it was like I got picked up at the airport. Zach had already been out there. I like set up a whole brand new complete. They wanted me to ride Ventures. I was like, I don't ride Ventures, and like, they're like, whatever, just ride them. So we went to, I think it was the opening of Antioch. It was like, I think it was the opening, because that day it was like Phil was skating like crazy. Wade was just going everywhere. I mean, he was going like, he was hitting the spine, then going over the fence and like going way up the wall. Like Drehobel too, he was hitting all this shit. I was like, dude, and McKinney was there. So yeah, I hadn't even really heard or known about McKinney. And then I saw him. I was like, dude, this guy's just like these guys. He skates fucking good.
Yeah, all terrain.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wasn't that all terrain. I mean, I could skate mini ramps, but I was just all about, I could do some grinds, slip slides, and a lot of ollies.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but once you got to know McKinney, you came down to San Mateo and hit a bunch of spots down there. I remember. Yeah. I think you lip slid that white rail on El Camino. I think it was Bank of America or something. It's a big one.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And nobody had hit that. And it'd been there forever. And McKinney was like, dude, I've been looking at this rail forever. And then you just came and did it. I was like, that's been there for a minute.
Yeah. Which is funny. It was like, that was the only trick I could do like on a rail for a while. Cause I was like, I don't want to fuck with 50-50s. I don't want to get hurt, but at least lip slide is safe.
It's so weird how people, like some people have front board as their safety. I'm like, that's safe for you? Fuck that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then eventually Phil's gone. Drehobel crosses third, goes to Crooked. Duffy comes on. Was Poncho already on when you got on?
Yeah, he was on.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I was right after. Well, he had been on maybe a while, and then I got on.
And Diego.
I was just on flow. And then, shortly after, I'm trying to think when Diego came on. Because he wasn't around when I first got there. It was maybe I think
it was like 98, like right when Phil died, I think is when Diego, because Diego went on the trip that Phil died on.
Yeah, he was on that trip. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so probably was right there when he got on, think. I mean, dude
and
shows
you guys
up
used to hang out. Yeah,
he
would
lived
hang out all the
house.
time. Oh yeah, I forgot he did live at your house.
Yeah, he lived with me. We would wake up to Wedding Singer every morning and just crack up and then go skating. But That dude had a brain on skateboarding that I've never known before. Like maybe Jamie Thomas has that too, but I don't know him that well. But Diego was like, we're gonna go to this spot, and this spot.
He had it
and
all like mapped out in his head exactly what was gonna happen.
Kickflip back tail on Hubba, backside 180 Wallenberg.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, I was the
and
opposite.
this is like same weekend.
Yeah, I was the opposite. It's like, oh, I'll come see the spots. I'll see what I can do on some of them. You know.
Yeah, a little more laid back.
Yeah, and all those spots in the city are hard to skate. Like, there's a lot of them. There's something weird about it. And I know all about skating fucked up shit from Texas. I mean, there's always a crack or cobblestone or something. But there, it's just, I don't know. It's just maybe because of the hills, and I don't know. There's just a lot of different factors where I would go to a spot and be like, I don't like this spot. It's, I see what people do here, but the ground looks kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
Like that Jefferson School or whatever.
Yeah. Like
I had a checkout there. Like Pete got me a checkout there, but then it was just a lip slide. He was like, yeah, Muscat did this a long time ago. Nobody cares. It's a checkout. And I would always try to go skate there and like do a substantial trick, and I never could because it was just like, it was like a smaller rail with like rough tennis court landing. And it was just weird to me. I could never skate it that well.
That's the one Cairo nollied over, right? Like high to low. Yeah. Damn.
And we're going to put this PSA, public service announcement, check 1, check 2. This is for Howdy Cat and Zach and the boys out in Texas. Go check your audio. It's I use Spotify, but on any platform, I'm pretty sure you can even find it on iHeart. I swear I even seen it there. But audio usually comes out first. And if I'm hard up, I go check there first thing in the morning. Sometimes it's there. Shout out Texas, dude. Shout out.
Who would you film with mostly back then? Was it Joey Digital or was it Jones or?
I mean, originally it was you. Like when it first came out, it was you.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we went on a trip down to where did we go?
Fresno.
No, we went to Fresno. We went a bunch of places, but we went down to hooked up with Rhino. Was he in Santa Barbara? Where was he?
San Diego.
San Diego is where it was, because we stayed in Andy Mack's house or something. Remember?
Oh yeah, dude, that was like the first time I met Preston. Kind of like I knew him, but
we stayed with Preston, right? Not right.
Yeah,
we stayed with Preston.
Dude, I want photos because we were sliding down the pole. At Andy Mack's house, he had a fireman's pole his house, from his room to the living room, and we were just cracking up. And then his girlfriend was there. She got a bum because Andy wasn't there.
It's like, what are these degenerates doing in our house?
Yeah, because I think that was like an ASR weekend or something.
Yeah, I don't remember why we went down there. I feel like it was just to film, and
I feel like that was the weekend of the Big Ollie contest where it was Reese Forbes versus Danny Wainwright.
Yeah, it could have been, because I do remember having shitty shoes. I didn't have the right shoes. Like I had some crazy puffy S shoes that like had no grip, so I couldn't ollie for I maybe ollied the first one or two, and I was like, I can't do anything after this.
Yeah. What about like Visalia, like Jesse P and his crew? That was sick.
Yeah, we'd go out there a bunch. Go out there and then go up to the skate camp and stuff. But yeah, Visalia was always awesome because they had a shit ton of spots.
Yeah, they had Hanford, they got Visalia, they had the indoor and like Madera or whatever it is up by Fresno.
Yeah, Madera, Modesto, one of those. But then that closed. But then later I remember you went. Yeah, it was me and you and Ryan Johnson, and he showed us all the spots in that area. And I was like, how do you guys have those endless rails everywhere, endless flat bars and up rails everywhere?
Dude, RJ took us on the tour. We got to see the big curved handrail that he grounds. That thing was nuts.
Yep.
Yeah. What was some of the craziest shit that you remember going down at that 5th and Harrison place? Because that's kind of a sketchy zone.
It was real sketchy. I mean, there would always be people shooting up outside. There's a lot of feces when you step outside. I mean, the what's it called? The where they feed the homeless was, I guess it was 2 blocks away. And then I feel like something else was around the corner, and that's why there were always so many homeless there. But yeah, I don't know, you would see a lot of crazy shit around there, but it was the normal SF thing back then. It was just a lot of needles, a lot of crack smoking, a lot of defecation.
Yeah.
It was cool. You go around the corner and there's awesome graffiti, like famous artists doing graffiti, like in certain streets right around there.
Yep.
And then, yeah, sometimes late night at All Star too, like weird shit would get weird. You know, like people come in with their cars and like, you know, want to get
Just 24 hours, right?
Yeah, so it'd be like 4 a.m. or something, and it's just like seems like these dudes are about to get in a fight and start shooting each other over just like cars or something. They're showing off cars. You don't even know what's going on. You're like, I don't know what's going on. I'm going over there.
Dude, I remember picking you up at that place and going like, I can't believe this guy lives right here. This is because it's an off ramp of the freeway too. Yeah. Like it's just hectic.
Yeah, it's super hectic. And yeah, the building shook when the buses would go by. Like you're up on the third floor or whatever, and it's like you're like, oh, there's the Fulton, or you know, oh no, that's this one. You know, you could tell by the times which buses it was.
Yeah. Oh man, what's one of like your favorite trips you went on once you like got on Think and stuff like that you went with the team, like a tour or something like that?
I mean, a lot of them were fun. We do those Oregon tours and stuff. We go up and, you know, hit up a bunch of stuff for the shops. Reno too. I remember Reno was a party a bunch of times where we went on kind of some small trips, and they would combine. Sometimes it would be Think. Sometimes it would be like venture guys too, because they'd want to get as much as they could in the van. And then one time we did the Think versus City Stars thing. I don't know how I think that was all Ears and, you know, Kane talking about, somehow it came up. Maybe it was Joey and Ears talking about it, and they were like, that'd be cool. And so we like went up together and we do demos and kind of battle each other, you know, like who could do the most tricks, or, you know, who could win, sort of win the demo. And it was like, it was fun. Like that was fun. It was like right when P-Rod, you know, was just starting to come out, like where he was just starting to like, you're like, whoa, this kid's good. It was him and Mikey. And then that Justin, maybe, who else was on that team? There was another kid who was good at rails and stuff. He had style. But yeah, him and Mikey were just killing it. You're like, dude, these guys are on one.
Dude, what
that
about?
Was fun. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. Definitely any other ones in California. I mean, sometimes it get old, you know, having to drive around a lot, but that's just how it was. And then, going to skate camp, that was always the funnest. Like you go up there, you didn't have to do much as long as you didn't get in trouble for, you know, smoking or doing stupid shit. And you go off and swim the creeks or whatever. And I remember going there one time with McKinney, and all he wanted to do was fish. He's like, I'm not skating, I'm fishing. So just every day he's in the boat just fishing. Just out. They're like, McKinney, come back. He's like, no, I'm fishing.
One of those ones he got banned from, like he had a beer or something and they kicked him out because he was drinking. Yeah. Yeah, it's so beautiful up there though.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember one time we were like, because Dave at some point told us, he's like, just if you're gonna smoke, go way up over there where the, you know, staff does their stuff. Go up the hill over here. We go up there, it's a whole crew of us, Poncho's there, and they're all asking about bears and tripping on bears. And then I look over and you can hear crunch, crunch. And you see these two cute little baby bears, black bears, like 20 feet away from us. And they're all, oh, look, they're so cute. And I was like, everybody, start backing up. I was like, the mama's really close. They're right there. They're little ones. We need to get the fuck out of here.
She's gonna get we need protective. To hurry. Yeah.
And yeah, they're all, and yeah, so we kind of slowly backing up. And then they see the mama bear, and it's fucking huge. I mean, it was probably like 4 or 5 feet tall, you know, probably 800 pounds. I don't know how big it was, but she looks at us and everybody takes off running. And I'm like, don't run. Don't turn your back to him. He told us not to run. It's like, make a bunch of noise and slowly back up. Yeah, Poncho is just instantly gone. I was like, Poncho, you could be the first one got. Yeah, stuff like that was fun.
Yeah. What about Fuenzalida getting on to Think Chilean Prince?
Yeah, that was fun too, because he was such a damn good skater. And he was always funny on the trips because he would just be talking, you know, weird science stuff. Whereas most people usually talk about, I don't know, just kind of BS about different stuff. He would always be like talking about quantum string theories and quantum mechanics and what about this and this, getting really high and talking about it. I was like, yeah, dude, you're awesome. But yeah, he was so good at like skating. He could do any trick you could think of. And if you couldn't figure out a trick, he would tell you how to do it. Like I could never figure out how to pop out of crooked grinds. And he was just like, oh, just do this and this. I was like, oh, and then I had that trick on lock. I was like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah, he's like precision. And it's in his brain as well as his feet.
Yeah. Yeah, which I get because I'm super picky about where I put my feet on the board and how it has to flip and catch and all that. I always had a high standard for the way tricks are supposed to look. You know, like a tray flip's supposed to look like Duffy or Jason Lee. You know, it's supposed to look like comes up to your feet and you hold it, you know.
Right.
no yo flips allowed. And so I was always like that. When I started seeing, people hang their back foot off, I was like, boo. I was like, that's a pressure flip.
Right.
It's got to be a 360 kick
flinger.
You got to kick the shit out of
Jesse
that thing.
Pius had a good one.
Oh,
too.
he had a good one too, because he would do them on those giant. He would do them on like giant. What do you call them? Like launch ramp shit.
When your knees go up to your waist and you catch it like that, that's like insane. We're just like, and it's just like you're going up still as you caught it.
Yeah.
It's like fucking NARS.
Yeah,
I remember Jesse.
It was always my favorite. Always my favorite trick with 360 flip.
Yeah, it's a good
Jesse
one.
had a good one. Jesse definitely had a good one.
Yeah, so Dave, I got a couple questions from Dave R. and from Fuenzalida, and I think this question might be the same story, but asked two different ways. So I'm going to ask you both questions.
Yeah.
So Dave asked, what was the most expensive weed you ever bought, and how did that transaction go down? And then Fuenzalida said, do you remember buying weed at a club for $70 a gram, and was it the sketchiest ever in the bathroom stall? Are those two different things, or is that the same thing?
Could be the same thing, but that doesn't. Could be the same thing, but I don't remember the bathroom stall. Unless we went to Amsterdam and spent a bunch on weed and stuff and hash, but maybe I don't know.
He said something about you were in the bathroom in their apartment and you screamed because they had a bidet.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if it was right around that same trip, maybe.
Unless we were in Japan, that's probably what it was. Because they had the bidets, and that was the first time. Yeah, that was the first time ever using those things, and it was really hard to get there. Like it was frowned upon. They were like, you can't have any, can't. Whatever. So who knows? Yeah, we probably bought some, probably spent $40 or $50 for like nothing, for just like a little bag and swag.
What was Japan like? Because I've never been there. Was that your first? That wasn't your first time out of the country.
Where's the
probably
first
been
time?
to Canada.
I think Canada was first.
Right.
Yeah, I got my passport real quick. Had to go down to the passport office, and it was hilarious. Like all the documents I took, they're like, "Yeah, those won't work." I said, well, I have a magazine here, and on the binder, it says my last name. And if you look inside, there's a side profile picture of me, and it says who I am and where I'm from. And she looked at it. She talked to the guy. They're like, yeah, this will work. Because my birth certificate wasn't the right birth certificate or something. I was missing one thing, and my ID was expired. And they're like, okay, that works. Here's your passport. I was like, how did that fucking work? A magazine just got me my passport. Because we had to leave like in 2 days. We had to go to Vancouver, and it was Slam City. And those trips were always so much fun. Like, dude, the kids would just trade you piles of weed for product, or just give it to you. And yeah, it was just run really good up there. It was like they treated the skaters with a lot of respect, and you'd see the most amazing skating. It was like, I remember watching when Bob did, the perfect run or whatever that one time. He did, I think it was like 99, or I don't know if they gave him 100, but it was like, you couldn't have done a better vert run. I mean, he did fakie 5-0, fakie flip in the run, and then kept going and did some weird switch tricks. And you were just like, how is he still on his board?
Dude, Bob was fucking amazing. I remember in Southern California contest, they had the rail up there, and he did that trick, like fakie 5-0, fakie flip in. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Well, what was Japan like?
Japan was awesome. I mean, first time or two we went, it was just for like the trade show. I think we went with it's me, Poncho, I want to say Keith, Greg. No, Keith didn't go. It was Fish. Don Fisher went, and Greg. And then the real team was there too. So we kind of did some stuff with the real team, but then they went off on their own skate mission, and we didn't get to skate at all. Like, we didn't have anybody take us to skate spots. So I was always like, dude, we have to come back. And then I feel like we went back one more time. Yeah, we did. I just can't remember if we skate. Same thing. It was for the trade show they did there, but I don't know if I feel like we didn't skate. We only skated a little bit. We only skated a couple spots. But then randomly, Joe Brook and Anthony Clairville did a trip. I don't know if it was a slap trip or how they pulled it off, but they got all these guys to go out to Japan for like 10 days. And it was awesome. The only mission was to film and shoot photos. And so I think me and Danny ended up with I don't know if we shared an article or if they just separated it, but me and him ended up with so much footage from that trip. And like Russ Milligan was there.
Oh, sick.
Alex Klein was there. Who else? I think this guy Beavis, who was like a random Skateworks kid. Who else? I feel like it wasn't a big crew. It was only like 5 or 6 skaters, I feel like, in Fuenzalida. And we skated so many spots. I mean, I'd never skated that many spots. The only other trip I skated that many spots was in Italy, and that was a couple years later. But yeah, Japan was amazing.
That in 411, all your footage?
I feel like it was, but then some of it got broke up. Because you know how it was weird sometimes? Like
you'd save like a banger for your part or something.
Yeah, you'd have like, out of that week or whatever, you'd have like all these tricks. And you're like, yeah, those are good. We'll save that for the 4-in-1 can have that. But if it's a banger or if it's something that you want to keep, then maybe we can pull it off and, you know, you can save it for one of our videos. I was always terrible with footage. I think that was my problem because photos had that's what got me sponsored. And I remember so many times shooting photos without a filmer. Even like, oh, we can shoot a sequence right after this if you want. I was like, sure, whatever. I know it, I know it went down. If I need to document, I can come back later. So I was always terrible about that, like putting together video parts, all that. I think the only time I tried was with 411, and then it was even half-assed. I didn't film enough for it. And then one of my think parts for, I don't know if it was Free at Last or, no, I think it was the iTunes one. They like did the copy. What was it? I think that's what it was. Like that one, I actually like said, no, I want to get like this type of stuff and this type of stuff and this type of stuff. And I had a little bit more control of the planning or just the stuff that I wanted to get. I was like, I want to get these kind of tricks and these kind of tricks, not just jumping downstairs.
Where is Allison Castro now?
I don't know. He's probably he's probably around where I am, Huntington. I feel like he was in Costa Mesa, Huntington for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. With all those homies. Yep. It was crazy because after I started working at Thrasher, I mean, we're right across the street, but I'm seeing like different DMs and different the amateurs. Changes. Yeah. And you're just like, who's this guy? How's that guy fitting in? This and that. Cause like when I was there, it was just such a solid family, like with Joe Sierra and Joel Price, those AMs, but then like Zooch, Phil, McKenney, and then you got Jesse and Wade and Jerhobel. Like it was just so.
Yeah, and all those guys, it was like, because I remember I didn't have a sponsor me tape. They were just like, yeah, we saw your picture. Just send in some footage. Go next week, skate. Just send in a couple minutes of footage just so the guys can see it and, see if they're down. Right. And I feel like after that, that's not how it worked. Like, I don't ever remember them asking very much input on any of that stuff.
It all changed with the internet, I think. Like the internet made the video camera more valuable because people started putting video parts on the internet instead of just one VHS tape, and then YouTube, and then Instagram, and then pretty much you're just needing to film everything you do, and then that just watered down everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I definitely saw that over time.
Yeah, it was, I mean, us older guys a little bitter about things the way we did things compared to how they do it now. I'm like, this guy travels with just an iPhone. That's all he has to bring. I had to bring like this huge backpack that my back's still broken from. Like, it's crazy.
Bring a camera bag and a video
and a
bag.
Laptop and like lenses and just like sometimes lights. Like it was
lights. That was the other thing too, because the lighting back then, it was like you had to get it was hard to get all that shit fit in the van.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They started making the custom back things that you had little slots for everything.
Yeah.
Well, what happened going pro? Did you see that coming? Was that a surprise?
I mean, I knew it would have sort of eventually happened, but I was just doing the same thing I'd always done, which was just take photos and not really worry about filming too much. And then 411 was kind of like, hey, we should do something. But I guess Tampa Pro or Tampa Am, I did well. Then I got a trick in the magazine, and it wasn't even for my final run. It was just during the quarterfinals or something. But I did a kickflip back tail on the rail as like my last trick. And so that was like a big deal because they were like, oh, nobody does that shit in their runs. And it was true. It was like the only other person did any flip into anything was Mark Appleyard. And he saved that. He was like, I'm just saving that. I'm doing my simple stuff on my qualifying runs.
Yeah.
So I think I got 5th or 6th in the end. But yeah, after that, they're like, yeah, you did good enough. We're going to turn you pro now.
Tampa was a proving ground,
Yeah, it was.
It was like you do well there, you're going pro.
Yeah. And I noticed a lot that with a lot of people, they didn't do the best, but they went there, they showed what they could do, and
right,
made their name known more. And so they'd be like, yeah, you're going pro, like Nate Jones. I feel like Nate Jones was right around the same time, and like a couple other people, that were in the same families, Real and Deluxe, all that stuff.
Right. Well, did you have input on your graphic, or did they surprise you with your first board?
The first board was when they were doing a bunch of series. It was kind of like how Element and people like that would do series.
Was it just the name in a certain font?
Yeah, it was just name and a font with a think tag. And I think mine was, they were like, do you like light blue and white or something? I was like, yeah, I like blue. So I was like, that's cool. So I think the first one was like that. And then
so you had input. You knew your board was coming.
Yeah. And they decided on that series to throw it in.
Like now it's always like a huge surprise. Like,
yeah, they like roll out a surprise and like trick you so you don't know.
Yeah.
But no, it was more of just like, they had already started paying me like maybe 6 months before that. Because I was like, hey man, I have to work a side job. I have to work at the valet company, which all the skaters work there, Parking Solutions. I have to work there to make money and pay rent, or you guys can start paying my rent. And then Keith was like, okay, well, you'll be the first, and we'll pay your rent. And so, shortly after that, maybe 6 months, 8 months later, I guess it was less than a year that I went pro. And they were just like, all right, we're going to give you a board. And it still had a huge team. Like it was still, all those guys. It was Duffy, McKinney was still on the team. It was Poncho, it was everybody.
Right.
So big ass team.
Yeah.
So it was awesome traveling with those guys because, the range of skating and just everybody's just so, different, but we're just, I don't know, hardcore skaters, I guess.
Also people that like to enjoy themselves, like a lot of laughter.
Yeah, definitely a lot of laughter.
Yes. Good times. I remember the first time Duffy got on the team, we were just like, where do you want to go? And he's like, China Bank. So we're like, what the hell? Oh, man. Well, who was the artist at Think back then? Who was doing the graphics?
It was Fish. It was Jeremy Fish.
He was still there?
Yeah. And then, so he drew like some of my favorite graphics. He did a nun. It's like Jake's nun. It's like a sort of a naked nun with, she has a brown or black bar over her nipple. And that was a really good one. And he did some other graphic too. I can't remember.
Wow.
But then I had my roommate Joey from Austin. He's like he was a good tagger, and I did like a John Gibson like shout out board where it was a cow skull with a Texas flag behind it, and that was pretty much one of my favorites because I told him what I wanted and he drew it up, and then they scanned it and put it on a board. Pay some homage to Texas and pays some homage to Gibson.
Did you have some? Were you homesick at all while you were out here?
Yeah, but I would go back a lot. My mom would be like, "Come back for Christmas or come back for your birthday." And so when I had downtime, I would start going back. And then at some point, my dad left his house. He had been renting in this tiny little neighborhood called Clarksville, which is downtown Austin. He was leaving to go to Colorado, and my mom's like, "Somebody needs to take over that house. The rent's $500 a month." I was like, "Man, I'm paying $600 for a room." So me and my mom started splitting the rent there just to keep it as a house that, just essentially have. She used it for work. And then when I was in town, I would just stay there. And eventually I decided I'm just going to move back. And so I put all my stuff in some FedEx boxes and stored some of my stuff at Think and kind of went back to Texas for, I don't know, months at a time. And then I'd come back out to Cali for a little bit. Jamie Telch ended up keeping my room in Cali, so I would stay there when I came to town. And then eventually it was like, yeah, I'm just going to stay back in Texas. The skating's way better. I can shoot a interview, like Joe Brook had come out. First Luke came out and shot some stuff. We had some stuff on Thrasher. I think that was one of the first times I actually had substantial stuff in Thrasher. Nice. And, but yeah, it was really cold, but we tried to get a bunch of shit done. And we did. We got a few pages of stuff. And then, just at some point I was just coming back so much. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to stay here, and then I'll go back out to you guys.
Right.
And there was a lot of changes going on, I think, that time anyway. I feel like at that point, they kind of wanted me to step up and be, sort of TM, partial other stuff. And I was like, well, I'll be team manager. I'll plan trips, but I don't want to drive the van. I can't skate and drive the van,
Yeah.
No way. So, I mean, my back was already kind of fucked up. I was like, I'm not going to sit and drive and go skate, but I'll plan the trips. So I planned a few trips. And that was when it was like Adam Diet, Lizard King, Daryl.
Yeah. Fuck.
Who else was on the team?
Akil.
Akil was on there. So we did Texas. We did a Texas trip. We did a Boston trip. What else did we do? I feel like we went somewhere else.
That's when it started getting really random for me. I was like,
it was like the graphics were random. Like they were terrible. And it was just, I think they only had interns doing the artwork. Because after Jeremy left, that's what they did. They're like, okay, we're just going to do intern artwork. And then that went on for a while. And I think they occasionally would have an artist come in, but that artist would be like, nah, this is too much. I'm going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it had changed a lot at that point. And I think at that point, too, Fausto approached me because Greg was gone, Fish was gone, Keith was around, but he was only involved with Venture. He was like, he didn't care about Think. He's like, Venture's my shit. I got my other businesses going on.
So was Tony running it then?
No, he wasn't really running. He was doing City. They kind of gave him City to do his thing with. And so Fausto kind of said, well, if you want to kind of take over, and it never happened, but if you would manage it and take over Think and come start spending more time out in California, then I'd offer you a piece of the company. I was like, what? I was like, why would you? Okay, sure. But then like a month or two later, he died. So everything changed. And after that, it was like everything was in, everything was like, everybody's like, what do we do? Everybody was kind of, not lost, but how do we step in and fill the role?
No, I would say lost. Like I remember,
there was no plan. There was no here's how this works.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of confidence. Like it was like I remember feeling like everyone in the industry had a microscope on what we were doing and how we were going to move forward from there on. Yeah, and not for nothing, but I always say, Tony, hardworking, smart guy. We're as thick as we've ever been, and we're the only magazine left. Fausto would be looking down stoked.
Yeah. Cause I was in the beginning, I was like, if I was Tony, there's no way I could do this, being I'm just in school right now, trying to figure out business and stuff. And this is not over his head, but this is just a huge load. I was like, I'd never be able to pull that off.
Huge load. And you just lost your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad would be the one you'd be turning to when you're stressing or having questions. He's gone. So you're grieving and you're trying to maintain this iconic thing. It's a lot of pressure.
Do it. Yeah, it's insane.
I remember the funeral. He's like, picture me rolling. He was like, I'm taking it over. With me, we always crack up because that was a funny ass speech. But yeah, man, that's crazy. So after that happened, was that kind of the demise of Think? Tony had to go fully into Thrasher, and then
somebody had to step in, and they just kind of let it go by the wayside. And I think if me and him maybe had an agreement, that things maybe would have changed. Maybe I would have had some control over stuff. Let's make sure we do this and this. But I think at that point too, at some point there, shortly thereafter, I think they combined the City and Think teams too, didn't they? They all they brought them together.
And there was Lucky too.
Yeah. Yeah, see, and there was Lucky Skateboards at one point, wasn't there?
Henry was on Lucky.
Yeah, that's what. Okay, see, I was thinking it was just the bearings and the wheels and shit, but no, they did. Yeah, because it was all at some point. It seems like it all amalgamated together.
Yeah, and then I think that
I think they sold
it to Low Card or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it went into the casket, but. Yeah. Recently, Jesse and Matt Pales, a couple of guys hit me up and they're like, dude, some dude's going to bring back Think and he wants to give us models and stuff. Should I do it? And I was like, I don't know. Hold on. And I was I called up Keith and I was like, do you hear about this? He's like, yep, we're putting that fire out right now.
Keith's like, I got this under control.
Yeah. That's not happening. Yeah. But I mean, we talk about it a lot. The Think documentary would be really cool. There's so much history with
Yeah, so
rad
many
dudes,
people.
and just how it was done back then was amazing. And
Yeah.
I mean, Greg and Keith kind of were at the right place at the right time. You know, to be like these pioneers of a company that Fausto was helping. Like there was Deluxe and there was Think at that time, you know, and
he kind of left them on their own. He was like, "You guys do your shit. You're going to be responsible for it," and they kind of did it.
Yeah. So,
and, you know, shout out to Greg, dude. He taught me so much. He was a really good mentor. I mean, he taught me a lot of stuff about life and about just the industry and, you know, how things work and how not to be an asshole and
right.
How to do the right thing and, you know, try to make yourself and everybody happy, which is a hard thing to do, you know?
Yeah. I just talked to him last week because I am trying to get all these brainstorms together, bullet points, and I've been trying to knock out this homage to Phil video that I am blessed and cursed with, you know, like I'm like, fuck, that's a lot of pressure because I know how great he was and I need to like make this video great. And Greg's attitude is just wow. Yeah. Like I hung up the phone and I was so sparked. I was like, he fired me up. Like he just says nice things, compliments you, and you talk about life and you have the same perspective on some things. And
definitely,
it's just cool when you touch base with the real ones. You know what I mean? Like we know, we don't even have to say it, but you know what I know. Like, and that goes a long way. It's out of any of the old guys, do you still get in touch with kind of a regular, or have you lost contact with most of them?
Not too regular, but like I saw Danny a couple years ago. He was in Austin just for a night or whatever. If I was ever out his way, I'd hang out with him. Same with Pancho. Pancho rolled through on he was on the Rockettes tour or whatever, where he had met his wife. And so I met her and him, but that was a long time ago.
You seen his stand-up comedy?
Yeah. And I've been following that recently. I've been telling him how funny he is. I'm like, dude, you were always funny. But dude,
I want to go to one so bad.
Yeah.
That's on my bucket list.
He said something about doing one in Austin. I was like, you got to do one.
Wow.
Like come out. There's a bunch of comedy clubs now. We only used to have one and now I think there's like 6.
That's what I said. I was like, come to SF. We got, you know, let's go. Like that'd be so sick. I bet you a bunch of people would come out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It'd be cool. Well, so what ended up, so it kind of just fizzled, or was it just
Well, I tore my ACL. I went on an Adidas trip. It was when Adidas was starting the skateboarding thing. Yeah. Because one of the Think writers, Jesse Bracewell, was the test shoe guy. And so if you were a 9.5 or 11, he'd be like, hey, I'll send you boxes of shoes, skate the shit out of them. Tell us what you like or don't like. Because they just had all these Adidas shoes that they were thinking, like, how can we incorporate this into this skating program that we're going to start at some time? And he really helped spearhead that. Like, here's how we're going to transition into this. And then at some point, they just kind of took it away from him, or he got involved a little bit, but they just moved it into a different direction. And it was like, it started with Gons and Booznitz and maybe Tim O'Connor. It was only a couple of people when they started it. But then there was like a flow list of like, I don't know how many, it's like 20 people, 12 people. I don't know. We went on a Southwest trip. We went out to ASR, and then I was going to drive one of the vans. We had minivans. And then, so we went from there to Albuquerque, Denver. And then in Albuquerque, I mean, I was skating really good. But then randomly I was dorking around on the double set, maybe a triple set. And I just kind of fell backwards doing a backside flip, which is like a joke trick to me. And my knee like twisted and popped. And I was like, oh shit, that's not good. And so it swelled up really bad the next day, and tried to drive to Denver. And then, got on a plane and went home. And on the plane, it was crazy. It swelled up so bad.
Oh,
and I think from the altitude, from the pressure. And I think I tore it, but not that bad. And then maybe like, I was like, oh, it's not that bad. And I was wearing a brace and I was fucking around. It was right after we had opened the No Comply shop. And I was fucking around with somebody was playing me skate, my old friend, and he did a No Comply shifty or whatever. And I was like, I ain't gonna do that. It's gonna hurt my knee. And I did, I just slightly attempted it, and it hurt so bad. I was like, yeah, this thing's definitely fucked. So then I eventually, Tony hooked me up with Dr. Chow, who did Phil's knee. It's the guy that Fausto died with. He was riding his bike.
Dr.
Not Chen, something.
No.
I saw him. He got me an MRI. And he basically said, you've been going, this many months without it. There's no rush to do it. Just whenever you get insurance, fix your knee. And then I was busy with the shop, and at some point Tony called and just said, we can't give you a check anymore. And I was like, okay, I understand. Cool. There's nothing I could, nothing either of us could do.
Right.
I really wasn't planning on, once my knee was done and I didn't have insurance, I had no plan to, my thought was, I can get insurance through the shop. We'll start getting employee insurance and we'll be covered. That shit never happened. So, and I was just in weird relationship in life, like had a crazy girlfriend. So I never focused on things like that. And skated sometimes. And then we started playing soccer out at this place kind of out where I live now, Commons Ford. We started playing soccer out there, just dorking around. And that seemed to help my knee the most, which doesn't make sense. But yeah, running around in cleats on grass really kind of built it up over time. And I never fixed it. And it kind of bothers me sometimes. I kind of messed it up a couple weeks ago. So I do have an appointment finally to get MRI for the first time in, I don't know, 15 years.
So you never had surgery?
No.
Oh shit.
No.
Can you skate now? Can you roll around or whatever?
Not right now. Before I could skate. Yeah, there was a couple of years I could skate pretty fine. There was only it was like going front side hurt the most on transition. That's what would hurt it. But yeah, when House Park opened, I was skating there a bunch. I was like learning manual tricks and still skating, not big rails, but still skating little rails and stuff. But
no, you tweaked it more?
And then just not really that much. I've tweaked it a few times, but never that bad. I'll always, a couple weeks later feel fine and start regaining strength. But yeah, this one kind of hurt. I'm having to wear a knee brace. So I'm glad I finally have decent insurance and try to get it fixed before the end of the year. First my back, they're going to MRI my back in like a week, and then they'll do the MRI on my knee a couple weeks later, or a week or two later.
It's gnarly, dude. I've been doing a little bit of yoga and like long walks in the morning and stuff, and it's been helping with my back. I got these like shoes that I never would have wore in public. You know what I mean? Like you look there, you're like, am I wearing these shoes?
It's like something out of a movie.
Dude,
some crazy
it's like
movie.
soles like higher than like, oh, it's nuts. But yeah, one day I was at work and somebody's like, dude, of course your back hurts. You're wearing slip-on Vans. There's no arch support, like whatever. So I got these running shoes from New Balance and like it started feeling better. I got a little chiropractor work done and that helped. And then dude, when you stretch, better than anyone, like stretching is huge for all of this stuff.
Yeah, you got to stretch and you got to keep it. My problem is I do a lot of construction work, so everything I'm doing, I'm bent over this way. So I have to figure out how to build the muscles going the other way, So I don't know. There's this guy, knees over toes guy, who teaches a bunch of exercises and stuff like that, how to rebuild knees and backs and stuff. And it's all scalable. You can do it different ways. And I tried doing some of them. But yeah, the past year, I got taken out playing soccer last year. Somebody just completely from the side, some young kid. Like now my hips were like that day they looked all messed up because I put something out of line, and I'll just stretch and try to make it better, as good as I can. But recently, it's really been hurting. Like walking's the worst. I went and walked a bunch yesterday and I'm like, oh, my back hurts, my knee hurts.
Fuck. You still in touch with Zac Martin?
Yeah, he called me the other day actually. He has a bunch of goats.
Oh.
And he was trying to, he's like, we're going to have a big slaughter soon. And he's trying to get rid of them. He doesn't have the price of hay has gone up so much since the pandemic. He's like, I can't afford all these goats because they keep procreating and there's more and more. And so he has way too many. He's trying to find a farm that he can, give some moms off to, and they'll keep the lineage going because they're really good goats. But yeah, he's going to have a little slaughter sometime soon. And we might do it out at Doug King's, he was saying. Doug King's this guy. He's got he does this big, what's it called? It's like Skatopia. But yeah, every year on his birthday in November, he does King's Fest and has bands playing. And now, it's huge now. People come out. There's thousands of people hanging out and lots of bands.
Rad.
And it's super fun. I haven't gone out for a few years because it's a little too hectic for my mood. But yeah, they shoot off guns and fireworks and shit. I'm like, I don't trust all these kids being stupid around me.
No.
In these days. I'm trying to be smarter with.
Dude, ask
the
Chris
people I hang-
Russell, man. You wear goggles if you're gonna shoot off fireworks. That's for
Oh, yeah.
sure. Especially at people, it's gnarly. Well,
Yeah,
there's
and out in
some.
Texas, they get the fireworks out there are insane. Like I don't know where they're coming from, what they're building, but like a couple years ago, we're sitting there and this flying saucer, giant plastic thing comes flying into like where we are. We're like, where did that even come from? And it was the craziest contraption I've ever seen. It was like a big flying wheel with all these bottle rockets on it. And it just came like flying across the sky and hit my friend's carport. We're like, what the fuck is this?
Fuck.
So they have crazy fireworks out in Texas.
Are you guys pretty much like, let's get out of town when South by Southwest comes, or is it mellower after the pandemic?
It mellowed out a little bit after the pandemic, but I think everybody downtown is growing so much and it's always so fucked up with construction. I mean, everybody pretty much avoids it unless you're going down there to skate or something.
Right.
I mean, I'd never drive through downtown. I avoid it with a passion because usually you just go around. There's one street, 15th, you can still go down. It goes in front of the Capitol. It's still pretty good, but yeah, they're just building so much and they're so far behind with shit. I mean, that town is, since the 80s, they haven't been planning development well at all there. It's just grown every which way. West, north, east, south, every direction it's grown.
What do you give credit to for Austin being such a different city than most of the rest of Texas? Is it just the college or is it more than that?
It's the college is a big part of it, but also the state government is based there, which the state government has always been more liberal than people like to present. It's only in the last 20 years that the state government has been this far right. It's gone back and forth a little bit, but it's always been, I mean, Texas used to have Democratic governors for a long time. Ann Richards, I can't remember them all, but Mark White. I mean, they always had a Texas. I mean, from the 60s, I mean, LBJ was from Texas. He wasn't that conservative. I mean, he was conservative, but he wasn't that conservative. So there were being in the middle and having all the green space they had, because the people that settled Austin, they were like a lot of Germans, a little south of Austin, like New Braunfels and places like that. There was all these towns. So that's where the barbecue came from, because this cooking style emerged out of Texas from this mix of German and, and it just, I don't know, Austin has, I mean, I think it's the school and the state government. And then at some point, Samsung came there in the 80s. They had like $800 million project that my mom worked on east of Austin to build processing chips or something. That's all it was for. And in the 80s, they knew they were coming out there. And so I think after that, Dell popped up. Dell was big for a while. So now, yeah, there's still a lot of,
it seems like Silicon Valley, a bunch of those are moving there.
Yeah, they're moving there because you get great tax breaks. There's no state income tax. You get these insane tax breaks.
Right.
You don't have to really kick back to the city. They should require of these companies, like, hey, when you build this, you got to build this. You got to build us a green space as you're building this giant building. And yeah, they really changed. Like Austin was always, they had a rule about you couldn't block the Capitol. It was in their state, rules. They had passed it. Like if you build anything up this high, you can't block these corridor views of the Capitol. Now you can't see the Capitol, only from one direction and another, because I don't even recognize the skyline when I see it. I'm like, where's the buildings I know?
Yeah.
Because I'll look at it and I don't recognize it.
That's how SF got too. And I just get bummed because everyone's like, oh, SF's changed. I was like, show me a city that hasn't.
Oh,
like
yeah,
everywhere's
so
changed. Like, come
it's
on.
Just that time. It was like after the crash, it was like that's when all the investment groups got bigger and knew what to do with their money. They're like, we're going into this real estate shit. And we're going to run it for a while.
Right.
So,
I mean, Austin is kind of like, I always say it's kind of like Portland of Texas. Like it has that vibe where it's just like a lot of cool outdoor eateries, like bars. And then the people's minds are like in tune with what we're, so it draws people of that stature to move there, and it just keeps it like going in that same way, I think too. I mean, the music scene there, I always think that like music and skateboarding, right? They're the tastemakers. Like that's what people, they see these guys and that kind of emulates what they want to be like. So when you got like rad shit going on, people are drawn to it and then they follow in the trends and stuff. Skateboarding's always been ahead of everything, it seems like, where that's concerned. And so
yeah, I guess you're right about that too, the music, because I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, in the 70s, I mean, they started this whole Cosmic Cowboy thing, and that popped off in Austin. They started this place called the Armadillo. Before that, there was Threadgills, and he had been around for a long time doing live music there, but it was more blues and folk, you know, kind of not honky tonk. But then the Armadillo opened, this place, the Vulcan Gas Company, that a friend of mine, his dad, opened back in the day, in the late 60s. He opened it. And that was like Rocky Erickson's first gigs were at the Vulcan Gas Company. You know, they have all these old shirts and posters and stuff that, this famous artist from Austin did. And there was a huge movement. I think that's why my parents moved to Austin. They were both in Houston, and they were like, well, our friends are going there. They got amazing music. It's like all these people are moving there. Right. I was recently reading a Townes Van Zandt book, and it's like, that's why he ended up staying in Austin. It's because he just he had a community, and he had people he could hang out with and live the life way he wanted to, just playing music and drinking and doing whatever, and then travel when he needed to.
Yeah. And again, just kind of laid back, having fun, low stress, and enjoying life more. Have you ever seen, me and my wife went out there for a 3-day weekend or something, and have you seen the chicken shit bingo?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that's been going so awesome.
It's been going on a long time, and I never went. I would always go to Jenny's Little Longhorn when it wasn't chicken shit bingo, because it was hard. It was hard to even get in and get a ticket and all that. But they eventually kind of learned how to corral all these people in, and they made the place bigger. At some point, it closed, and this local guy, Dale Watson, he's a famous musician around here, put some money into it and reopened it, because it needed all this stuff to reopen. It needed AC work, it needed refrigerators. It had all, because they were one of these bars in Austin where they were grandfathered in, where you could bring your own liquor bottle in, and they would serve you a setup. So they sold setups. They serve you $5, few bucks, big bucket of ice and Coke, whatever you want to mix your liquor that you just brought in with. And then they sold their beer. It was a weird old school beer license that they had. And then once they closed, they lost that. And there's been a bunch of others that have closed down. And I don't know if there's any left that actually have that rule still in place. But it was always an amazing thing. It's Lucky Lounge was one, I think. No, not Lucky Lounge. What was it called? Horseshoe Lounge. That one was that way. Yeah, that one was that way too, where you could, up until, I swear it was 15, 20 years ago, you could go in there with a bottle, and they could bring out a couple ice, big giant thing of ice and a Coke.
Dang.
And then you just tip them well. Yeah. And they'd have shuffleboard. That's that place had really good shuffleboard, a dope ass shuffleboard table that was well taken care of. People were really good at it, shuffleboard sharks, you get taken out like that.
Mm. It seems like to me that all the people that live out there have the same answer, which gives me the vibe that there's just too many. But I always am asking, what's the best barbecue in the area? And people are like, oh, they're all good or whatever. Is there anything that if you're coming from out of town that you would highly recommend, go there?
I mean, the place to go that's been there a long time, and it's cool because you can see it all. I took Rosenberg there a couple times, is Salt Lick, and it's outside Austin.
Yeah.
And they have this huge inside, you go inside and there's this huge, big round, it's not a pit, but they have this thing where they're just smoking meats constantly, and it's just all out in the open.
Yep.
And so that's an awesome experience. And they do all you can eat barbecue. It's
and it's out by itself. Me and my wife actually went there.
Yeah.
It was,
that's so good. And then you can go to Lockhart. They had some of the original best barbecue, the oldest barbecue trademark, as they call it, is in Lockhart. These two families.
How far is that?
They built a toll road, so it only takes 20-30 minutes. It used to take a little longer, but it's pretty quick. And so now there's always been barbecue out there, and it's old school. You go in this place and the wall is just black from the soot, from how long they've been smoking in this one room.
Yeah.
But then in Austin, ever since Franklin's opened up, and I've never eaten there, it just kind of ruined everything, I guess. There used to be a place right next to, hopefully it'll reopen soon, next to House Park, the skate park, and next to No Comply. It was called House Park Barbecue. And I remember going there as a kid, and it always was cheap. It's still couple of years ago, it was like $10 for a 2-beat plate. Like that's unheard of.
Yeah.
But I know this guy from one of the kids who grew up skating with, this guy, Chris Micklethwaite. He was really good friends with that guy, Wiley Wiggins, who was the guy in Dazed to Confuse. He's the annoying guy, Mitch, in Dazed to Confuse.
Sick.
So he used to skate with us. We had a little skate crew, and he quit skating or whatever. But his friend Chris Micklethwaite, he has a brother, Tom. And this guy, Tom, randomly opened barbecue place maybe 10 years ago. And that's my favorite barbecue. It's called Micklethwaite Craft Meats. And now he has a little thing up front that does pastries, and he's doing well. Like he won some stuff from Texas Monthly and some other, competitions, but it's really, really good. And it's big portions.
I'm a fan. I love the.
So I would say go there because I know the guy and he's doing good, and you don't have to wait like Franklin's. Sometimes there'll be a line, but it's not that bad.
Okay.
It's pretty quick.
And if you want a pint, go to the Yellow Jacket. You might see Figgy.
Yeah, you might. I forgot. Yeah, he lives out there.
Yeah, Figgy moved out there for a bit, I think. I think he might be moving back eventually, but he's out there kicking it. So what's going on now? You're doing construction? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've been doing construction. My dad was a carpenter and contractor, so that was another reason I always came back here a lot. He would be like, "Hey, you want to come help me on this job? I'll pay you $25 an hour or whatever." And I'm like, $25 an hour? And this was like in the late 90s, early 2000s. That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it was basically like kind of tax free. I was like, this is awesome. It's coming out of Texas. It's separate.
Okay.
And I wanted to learn how to do that stuff. And so, yeah, I've been doing that. So now I'm not really a carpenter anymore. I'm an all around kind of guy. Because I have a friend who's a plumber and I have a friend who's an electrician, but they're always super busy and their prices are expensive. So I do end up doing a lot of electrical and plumbing, and I don't really do painting. I can paint, but I usually hire the painter, another friend of mine. I'll have him do all that stuff.
How long do you think it would take to come into electrician with no experience and have somebody trust you? Like what's the process there? Is it, you have to go to school or do you just have to learn?
No, you don't have to go to school. And in Texas, the rules have changed. Like for some reason, a couple of years ago, because my friend who's a plumber, he was with the plumbing company for years trying to get his apprenticeship. And then he had done his hours, but there was no way he was going to start a company because it was the bonding and the way the insurance and the way the licensing worked. It was just complicated and just wasn't worth it. But then, I don't know, a couple of years ago, the state changed the rules about that. So he started up his own company and now he kills it. I mean, some days he makes, like $1,500 a day just swapping out some water heaters or moving a shower line or a drain line, whatever. But yeah, he's a really old good friend who was a really good skateboarder that I looked up to. He was like the guy back in he was a little bit older, but in high school he wore like the cool button up shirts or cool sweaters, and he always had like the cool thrift clothes. He was like the first thrift shopper that I knew that looked cool. It's like, because we go to thrift stores to buy pants, but he would like go and like come out looking like stylish. This guy Mike Parsons.
Nice. Fuck, dude. Well, do you pay attention to what's going on anymore in skateboarding?
I mean, yeah, I'll look on the Thrasher website and watch stuff like that, up on my TV, since now it's so cool that you can do that. It's like, oh, I can just watch all this on my TV, no longer on the computer. It's pretty cool.
I know. We've been watching some of the stuff they put on YouTube, full screen, just because we have a projector.
I keep up with some stuff.
Okay. Anyone that has your attention, that like, damn, this new kid's sick? Any of the new jacks?
Who was I just thinking about the other day? I love that one kid that came out a while back, Corey Glick or whatever. He was doing some shit that I was just like, wow, that's some proper skateboarding, like doing it style wise and like just coming up with new stuff that people hadn't thought of.
Right.
But there was somebody the other day, who was it, that I was like, yeah, this dude. It was Jordan Trahan, and he's over in Louisiana, right? Jordan Trahan? Yeah. And he's got the right pop, the way he catches his tricks and everything, the style, like everything he does is always like, I don't know. I feel like it was what me and my friends like wanted to do when we were younger. We wanted to have like that good style and like make it look effortless and, flip your board the right way, like catch it the right way. And seems like that dude's always doing it.
Yeah, dude. Sick, man. Good catching up with you. You got any tips for me? Like if I was going to ask you, Tell someone that doesn't know anything about Phil. What do they have to know? What do they? How would you describe Phil to someone that doesn't know anything about him?
I don't know. I guess he was just a natural. He was like a natural on a skateboard.
Mhm.
And he had, he had the version, not the version, but when I knew him, which was a short time, he was into street, like he was like into street skating. But he also still would kill anything, like any ramp or any bowl we went to, he would kill it.
Mhm.
But he was really into like, I don't know, his style was just amazing. It was so effortless. And he was always like, his laughter, he would just laugh about stuff, like even just like dorking around skating. He'd be like, ah, I can't even mimic the laugh, but he had this laugh that was just like, it was very endearing. It was like, the guy loves what he does.
Right.
I never saw him mad, like on skateboarding.
Right. Yeah, man, I miss that dude. We've lost some important people. Probably we all die eventually.
Yeah.
That's the message. But like, man, I remember just when Jake Phillips was alive, we'd go to places and he would look at me and go, "What would Phil do here?" And I'd be like, just touched that he was thinking about that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, dude, I know. It's fucking gnarly.
Yeah.
Anything else we should touch on?
I don't know.
You probably don't want to talk about the shop, right?
I'll talk about it. It's just for a long time I had animosity about it, but in the end it's all it's all my fault and in my control.
Oh.
They attempted to force me out of a corporation, which you can't do. I was a minority shareholder in a corporation, so I was just under the impression that things weren't going well and they didn't like me, so I chose to go my own way.
Okay.
So I ended up losing money on the whole endeavor and never being, I guess, appreciated, or because I did a lot of work. Even my dad helped build out the second shop, which is not the one they just redid, but the second one, which is next to the skate park.
Oh yeah.
They weren't around and they wanted me to finish it out. And my dad came and he's like, "Hey, how about we figure out a board rack?" And help me design a board rack, that would look cool. And then, we just ended up figuring out how to bolt these things to the walls. That was fucked up brick walls. And, we did a lot of work over there. And, I just put a lot of work and time and effort into the shop, and it never got to the point where I wanted it to. My expectation was high. I wasn't worried about sponsoring a lot of kids. I just wanted to make a nice, clean shop where people could come and be respected. I didn't want any of that attitude, like looking down on customers or any of that, nonsense. Like when you come in and you're working here, you treat everybody the same. You go to them and, even if it's your homie walking in, you ignore him and you take care of the customer. That's the first time customer,
Right. Yeah. I went there and the guy that works there, he was so nice to me. And I'm sucking at remembering names today, but him and his girlfriend worked there at the time and they were just like, "Oh, I listen to your podcast," and like da da da, and it was cool. Elias wasn't even around that day, but it's unfortunate though. Like, do you guys, if you see each other, can you say hi, or you guys don't really talk?
No, I say hi to him. Like last time I went to an art show or something, I was walking out and Elias, saw me and stuck out his hand. I shook his hand. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Da 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 da. But yeah, there was times, like, I don't know. I remember times they would start coming to the Yellow Jacket this is years after it opened, and that was like, they never went there or whatever. And it was like, I felt like it wasn't our bar, but it was like they were there, and I think I was drunk, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck you guys." And anyway, it was whatever. It was just me being a drunk asshole, and I'm fine with it. It's me just venting feelings about it. But yeah, I handled it the wrong way. I know that. And I'm proud of them. I'm proud of what they've done. And, now they got, they've gone through a couple different owners, and now this guy Grant who was a guy we like sponsored early on when we started sponsoring kids. He was one of the people I think I wanted to put him on, or Elias did. It was cool because we each got to pick like 3 or 4 kids we'd want to sponsor, from around. And,
that kid Max is amazing.
Yeah, he's insane.
Yeah,
but I remember first seeing him in Boston or somewhere. We were doing a Think tour, and we were way up in, where were we? We weren't in Maine, but we were in like North Massachusetts. Maybe we were in Maine.
Huh.
Portland, Maine,
New
maybe?
Hampshire.
There was an indoor skate park, and it was crazy. Like there was a photo of Dave Chappelle skating there on the wall. And
is that Rhode Island?
No.
I've
feel
heard
like
that story though. Dave Chappelle was skating a park back east. I don't remember.
Yeah, there was a
where it
picture, and I have years to take a picture of me next to it, and people were like, "Were you with Dave Chappelle?" I was like, "No, that was a picture on the wall. You couldn't tell." But no, Manny Santiago's there, Baczynski was there, and I think they knew Max, because Max was just, doing the thing where he's just like not showing off, but just like skating, like
ripping
with us and like ripping and doing stuff. And I don't know if he lived out there or what, but shortly after that, I saw him like in Austin, and I was like, "That's that same kid who was doing Nollie 50/50s up there."
Yeah.
And, I don't know if he lived there or if he was just randomly up there, but I swear he knew Manny Santiago or one of those guys somehow.
Okay. Yeah, Sebin's got a cool little thing going. It's local there with the Roger stuff. He's doing
and I think they do that with like the shop, or integrated with the shop somehow. I don't know if it is.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
I feel like somehow maybe they're involved together.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't say he's like an owner of the shop, but I swear Roger stuff is, I don't know if it's distributed through there. I don't know how it works.
I told Sebin I want to see some of his characters come to life in Walking Dead. I feel like he could get that going.
He definitely could. Yeah, and I'm stoked for Sebin. I mean, now he's involved with you guys, which is
he's
pretty
copy editor, and
it's crazy.
I think I'm pretty sure this year was his 20th year or something, which is crazy. But he started, I think, didn't he start with Slap doing, no, maybe he started with Thrasher. Yeah. Because Jeremy Fish was doing the Big Stupid.
Yeah, he did
Slap.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, dude, how long you in California? Where are you at? Huntington?
No, Corona del Mar. Corona del Mar. So yeah, just a little town south of Huntington, I guess, right?
You got a week out there?
Wednesday to Sunday. My girlfriend's dog sitting for a friend of hers, and so she's staying here for a few weeks, and just came out to hang out for a few days.
Right.
Get away from the heat.
Yeah. What do you do? And what do you do to like give yourself some happiness, like especially on a day where you need to force it? Is there any techniques, meditation, certain music, or anything that you just draw to get out of the funk?
Music helps.
For sure.
Where I live, if I'm at my house and it's not too hot, I'll go down to the lake, because the lake park down there is so nice and the water's cold. And if it's not too many boats around, it's like, it's very pleasant. Like you go out there and it's, take a dip, you just hear the trees rustling. You can kind of forget about things. Sometimes I'll see my friend down there who does spa skate parks. He'll do like his Friday. He'll be in there because they have internet at the park, because it's the HOA park.
Yeah.
And it's a funky old park. But he'll be there on his lawn chair on his computer. And I'm like, "You're not working." Just like under the trees at the lake. And I'm like, "You son of a, I want your life."
There was people at Barton Springs doing that when we were there. They're like just sitting out on laptops. I was like, these fools are working. They're getting paid
right now. Jerks.
Yeah. Dude, that's the one thing that we definitely don't have is hot weather and swimming. And man, I was just telling my wife, because we got Labor Day weekend, 3 days off. Yeah. And she's like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't want to get stuck in traffic. That's number one. And I don't want to go to a crowded place. That's number two. But number three is I really want to go swimming somewhere where it's hot. And to do that, we got to go at least an hour and a half, maybe up to Sac or something."
Yeah, I was going to say go up to Fresno or Sac or whatever is up there, the river up there.
Yeah, or Auburn, like towards Tahoe is really good. But I feel like everyone's doing that this weekend.
Everybody will be doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, shit, man, it's good catching up with you. If you were going to put a certain song down as we leave, what song would you go to?
I mean, I'll probably just go back to one of my favorite songs of all time, the Pixies song, Motorway to Roswell.
Oh, rad.
It's a good song. I used to go to sleep to it, even though it's not a good song to go to sleep to.
I saw Pixies in Big Sur at the Henry Miller Outdoor in the Redwoods. That was
probably awesome. Yeah.
Mind-blowing. It's one of the best. I couldn't believe it. Well, hell yeah, dude. Stay in touch. It's good catching up with you.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to do this. It was fun.
Hell yeah. I'll talk to you soon. I'll let you know when it's going to pop out or whatever.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Schmitty.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Jake. Take care.
All right. I will. You too.
Later.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Talking Schmit. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. When you subscribe, you'll get notifications every Tuesday of new episodes the minute they become available. Also, please leave reviews and a 5-star rating. It's the best way to help the show grow. All of the episodes will always remain free, but if you would like to help support the show, you can do so at TalkinSchmit.com, where you can pick up some merchandise like t-shirts, beanies, hats, and stickers. The website has an entire archive of all of the episodes, with extra photos and videos. Email us with any suggestions, comments, or ways that the show may have improved your life at talkinschmit@gmail.com. All interviews are conducted, edited, and produced by Schmitty. The intro music is Mary's Cross by the band Nature. A very special shout out goes to the executive director, Sharal Camisa.
Shout out.
This is Talking Schmit, where the Rolodex is deep, but the conversation is deeper.
Keep the wheels greased.